So I was preaching, and the introduction for me is all about why you should listen to this. I'm trying to hit the needs of the audience. I was speaking about joy, the joy that comes from God versus just a temporary happiness and kind of working through both of those. And then I played a video of Tom Brady. He was just like, is there something more in life? And so that video played and it ended and a guy stood up and just started yelling at me. If I remember correctly, he said something like, I thought this was a place that preached the Bible.
Welcome to the show. So today we're gonna be talking about a few things. One is for pastors, summertime. Is it a time for rest, time for rally?
Rally.
Right?
Get the rally towels.
Yeah, right. Speaking of summer, we also have, I asked in the Pastor's Circle Facebook group, does your donations dip in the summer? And about 38% so far today said, yes, donations dip. So how can we help churches increase their giving? We'll talk about that. But first, did you guys see, I feel like it was like last week or the week before, this pastor is Dr. Ed Newton. He's the lead pastor in Community Bible Church in San Antonio, Texas. He's preaching, I believe it was on like the lost sheep. And this guy just yells out like, bull crap. Like
he curses at him.
Yeah. He doesn't, I don't know if he curses. Yeah. I don't know if he curses at him, but he just yells out a profanity.
Okay.
And the guy ended up being homeless. And then I was trying to listen to did y'all see this, by the way?
Yeah, I saw pieces of it. I didn't finish the
I
whole
didn't
thing yet.
I didn't see it, but I heard
What I saw was...
Yeah, well, he like yells out, expletive, and then he said something to the effect. I was trying to listen to the audio because his audio is like real faint on the recording. But he said something like, "God saved me," or I think he was just like testifying, like, "Hey, God saved me, and I was homeless," and it was like this moment, right? And the pastor just kind of, to his credit, sort of puts his notes down, puts the Bible down, and he just kind of like sits there in that moment, and you could tell he's processing on the fly, and then people start walking up and donating like money. And the first one, he's kind of distracted.
Giving up this summer.
Bam, there it is.
Segue.
There it is. If you want to get your giving up this summer, so have someone curse at you during the middle of the sermon.
They're giving. Are they giving to the guy who cursed?
Yeah, because he's homeless.
Okay.
Someone brought him to church.
Okay.
And so people start walking. You can tell the pastor's kind of distracted. There's a lot of moving parts. And then, David, you've seen this. Did you how much of it did you watch?
I watched a woman walk up. What was that all about?
She was donating money.
Okay. He said something about a mom.
Yeah, so then a mom with a baby just starts like howling.
Right. Yeah.
Like
There's a lot happening.
There's a lot happening in that
disruption.
My favorite comment that I saw, it was on the YouTube video. The top comment, I think, was the best comment. He said, "There's 1,000 things this pastor could have done wrong, and he didn't do any of them." Like,
that's cool.
He handled it completely right, and I thought it was sort of a master class in how to handle disruption. Have you guys ever had like a disruption during a service?
Yeah, I did. I was preaching
in the middle of his sermon.
Yeah, the middle of the sermon. So I was preaching, and whenever I preach, I always just jump right into I've talked about this before, right? I don't stand up there and say, "How you doing today?" And then, I jump right in. And the introduction for me is all about why you should listen to this. And I'm trying to hit the needs of the audience. And so I was speaking about joy, the joy that comes from God versus just a temporary happiness and kind of working through both of those. Not that happiness is bad at all, but what is joy and what does that mean? And what we think is joy. And so I introed with kind of the setup, and then I played a video of Tom Brady. He had won, I don't know, a couple of Super Bowls at the time. And in an interview, he was just like, is there something more in life? It's a really good video out there. He seemed to have it all. And he's just like, I feel like there's gotta be something more. And so that my whole point was, we think we'll find joy in all this stuff, but where does joy actually come from? And so that video played and it ended and a guy stood up and just started yelling at me. And I if I remember correctly, he said something like, I thought this was a place that preached the Bible.
Which is funny. I was there because we saw this guy.
Yeah.
And he wouldn't, at least he didn't curse at you, right?
Yeah, he didn't curse at me.
But he would curse at us when he would ride on his bike.
That's true. He would ride around. Yeah. And so I was kind of stunned, but I saw him and I recognized him from just, he was around the neighborhood. And I think I said something like, excuse me, sir? Like I wasn't getting what was happening.
Yeah.
And I kind of was stunned. And he said it again and I kind of paused. And eventually he ran out and said something like, heresy or whatever. And I just kind of paused for a second. And I should have said something. I should have made a joke or something like, "Oh, not everyone likes the Patriots and Tom Brady." I should have said, but I think I just paused and said, "Hey, this is a big distraction. Let me read the passage. We're gonna get into the passage, but first I want to set this up."
Must have been an Eli Manning fan.
Yeah, right. I should have said that. And then I read it and it kind of went on. But we had 2 services at the time, and what was wild is just how much that kind of shook me up, because the next service, when I got to that point in the sermon, I was just like, my heart was pounding.
I bet.
And it was weird. So I feel like as a pastor, as I was thinking through this in my own just thought process, is figuring out what you would do in that situation before you actually get there, right? Because you have to be careful, because it's a lot happening at once in this story of this guy. So I don't know. I guess my only advice would be like, hey, think through what you would say if someone did this, to where you can be kind and respectful, but also say like, hey, this is not your time right now.
Bring order back.
We can talk about this later. I'd love to meet with you later. Figuring out what you're going to say before it actually happens. But I've heard of pastors, they have these stories and kind of just have to move on.
Yeah, David.
No, I mean, as a worship pastor, I've had people bring in like their own tambourine.
Oh, yeah.
And had one bring a shofar once. Talk about distracting from the back of the room.
And they can't get the shofar to work.
Yeah, and they're just trying, just spitting everywhere, spitting and sputtering. Like, that's distracting. It's just
someone bringing a tambourine and being offbeat. How terrible!
Yeah, it's whack. It's whack. And needless to say, they weren't invited to come back to church. It's like, you can come back without your tambourine. And they got offended. Like, this is no.
Like, we're a set package.
Yeah, me and the tambourine and I go everywhere.
One.
Yeah, I was whack. No.
Goodness, that's funny.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, try leading worship with that.
This wasn't like really like a disruption, like per se, but we went to a very well-known church on the West Coast. I'll just say that one time. And during worship, the worship music, the quality of the music was amazing, but they had these dancers on the stage, and it was like literally the buffest guy I've ever seen in like really tight like clothes, and he was dancing with a flag, and I was just like,
nope,
I cannot think about anything else in this moment.
Nope.
But this dancing guy with the flag who's like swole as all get out.
Mm-hmm.
So anyway, so people are funny, right? Mm-hmm. Church is full of people, and people are funny, and people are weird, and people are toxic or dysfunctional. I mean, this guy, he was always right about the church.
Yeah, he actually did try to come back, and the ushers were like, they stopped him and basically was trying to talk to him, and he took off.
I mean, he gave me the bird several times.
Oh, he did?
Yeah.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. So he was
friendly.
And so, you want to show compassion, but then you're also just like, man, there are other people here. This is the time to have like this argument. And it would never go well if you just kind of conversed and had a conversation.
All right. So question for you guys to one of the topics today, the summer. Summer's almost upon us. Is the summertime, I guess it's either or, right? But traditionally speaking, the summertime is a time for rest. And we hope that if you're a pastor watching, you're able to take a sabbatical, have some extended time to rest, maybe have someone on your preaching team take over for a month or so. But there's also this other option. And you and I, we know Pastor Cole Phillips in Austin, the Connection Church. He had this interesting strategy during the summer, and what he had told us was that during the summertime we have a lot of new families moving into the community, and so what their church tried to do is they tried to make their biggest like events, if you will, of the year in the summer, because you had a lot of moving people, right? A lot of new families in the area, so they tried to stand out in their community during the summertime, and all of their sermon series were super topical, super attractional, super evangelistic. And his theory was, if I can, because every church dips right in the summer. Attendance dips. I would say 98% of the churches in America, right? Your attendance dips, and maybe 100%. And so his theory was, if we can stay the same in the summer by the new families that we gain, when we hit the fall and everyone comes back, we will
a surge.
Yeah, we will have a much larger surge. Question for you, David. Your dad's been pastoring for a long, long time. Is summer like business as usual, or does he take a time to try to rest, get some guest speakers, or is it like, hey, let's rally, let's try to like reach these new families? Like, what's his?
I'd say for him, it's just business as usual, but that's because he's bivocational. So it's like he's got this mixed brain already of like, I got to work, we got to pastor church, and that's fine. But he loves that idea. He loves bringing in guest speakers. He's all for it. We do it at least once a month. We have someone come in on a Sunday night as a guest at our church, and then on Sunday mornings occasionally as well. So we've got a few actually lined up through the summer that will be preaching on Sunday mornings. But yeah, it's just a mix for him. I don't think we try to do anything big during the summer as a church. We're a church plant of 60, 70 people. So right now we're in a stage, we've talked about it before, we're in a stage of like just developing leaders and teams and getting systems in place. And I think that's something that could actually benefit a pastor's ability to rest during the summer. Right there. You've got teams, systems, resilient systems and teams and processes and people in place that can keep things running when you do want to take that week-long vacation and you need to get away with your wife or your spouse or whatever and the family. You don't have to worry about Sunday morning. You don't have to worry about the day-to-day. You've got the things, the processes in place to allow you to rest during the summer. And church can still just do what it needs to do. Not every church needs to go big in the summer. Maybe you're in a maintenance phase. Maybe you can't handle growth. Maybe your building, like our building, can't handle any more growth. And right now, we're pushing the limits. So we do want to grow, but in season.
Yeah,
at the right time.
Yeah, I think Pastor Cole's strategy is an uncommon one, right?
Sure.
Most churches don't do that. They really either business as usual, or the pastors do try to find time to rest. Wade, you've done what, 2 sabbaticals?
One sabbatical. I guess I would say is, well, you look at Sabbath in the Bible, obviously there's like a weekly rhythm, but there are also seasonal rhythms that we see of rest and feasting and celebration. So I guess I'm big on creating a rhythm of rest throughout the year, whether that's once a month that you're not preaching and you're still working. So you're not maybe taking time off. You're just taking a rest from that to concentrate on something else.
Yeah.
Or maybe you set up some pastoral care facilitators. So you're sort of taking a rest from that and you're still preaching. So I would say you kind of build up this system where naturally you're doing it throughout the year. Now in the summer, maybe you have a little bit more. Maybe you do take a sabbatical every year or every couple of years, but you don't get to the summer and feel like there's nothing left. Like you get to the summer and you're like, okay, I need to go out of town, or I want to go on vacation. My kids are out of school, but I'm not at the point of burnout because I've created this rhythm of rest. And so I think when you do that, it doesn't feel like your church actually shuts down for the summer.
Yeah.
You do get a little extra rest, but you kind of keep going at a similar pace. I'm also kind of just been thinking about the idea of like going big and what does that mean? And I think as time has passed, I'm just less inclined to think those big events where you're just like, everybody come, it's going to be the greatest sermon series ever. And we're going to have popcorn in a petting zoo and acrobats and all this thing.
Yeah.
I don't think people my age and younger really care for that.
No.
And so I think there are times when you get bigger, like Easter is a bigger thing, or maybe there's a sermon series that is more attention grabbing.
Sure,
but I don't know. I just think with growth, it's just like I think what people would want is just, you don't need a huge sermon series. Just actually like preach better week to week.
Yeah.
And just if you concentrate on that, like 1% better or however you want to do.
There's nothing wrong with a slow crawl.
Yeah, I just think that's gonna give you bigger dividends in the end.
Sure.
Maybe your sermons are 45 minutes and nobody wants to tell you that they're too long. Find somebody that's going to be honest with you and maybe get that down to 30 minutes. Like those types of things are going to be super helpful. So maybe the summer is, if you are resting, it could also be like a tinkering stage where you look at things from like the big picture.
Assess stuff.
And I don't know, that's just kind of what I'm moving towards.
Work on the ministry, not in the ministry.
Yeah.
Okay, so another item that we have is attendance usually goes down in the summer, right? Most churches. When attendance goes down, giving goes down. We see this across the board. We asked the pastors in the pastor circle, and about 38% said, yes, donations dip. And a good portion said they or stay the same. How can we help churches increase their giving or at least maintain their giving in the summer? What are you guys' thoughts on how to do that?
I think almost all giving platforms now have a way to automate giving.
Yeah.
I think automation is huge. Like if you've got a weekly or biweekly, monthly recurring paycheck, you understand what tithe is going to be. It's the same probably every time you get paid. Encourage your people to set that up on some sort of automated recurring system, planning center or whatever you use. Lots of easy ways to just tie a card to a specific amount on a day of the week and go. That way, when you're out and you're busy, it's not something you have to even think about. Like the paycheck came in, look, tithe went out the next day, and then you have to think about it. Automate your giving. Or we say it all the time around here, automation trumps determination. I'm determined to give. I'm determined to be faithful. I'm determined to give my tithe. But if you can set it up on autopilot, it's like bill pay for your car loan or your insurance, or it's just done. I don't even have to think about it. One less thing I have to worry about.
I think about the summer and travel. I don't think this is ethical, but you could be like, hey, set up recurring giving on your credit card and you get the points. In the summer, you actually can go somewhere.
Yeah, there you go.
There's this weird thing because you think about recurring giving and you don't think about it anymore. And so in some senses, I wouldn't say it takes away, but there's something about like every week giving. At the same time, there's the opposite of, hey, I'm giving before anything else. Like before I know what I've got to pay for car repairs or whatever. Like this is a thing that I have decided and we're going to do it every week. So I don't know. I think maybe concentrating on that and making that a big thing, I think could be huge. I know we have friends. They run. Tyler Smith runs Text in Church.
Yeah.
And so, kind of maybe building that up to where you can send out text messages. I don't know if you want to send out text messages every week where it's like, "Hey, remember to give."
Did you give?
But if you're kind of in constant communication with people, I think that could be helpful. And even some people, I know people that go on vacation and they watch the live feed.
Sure.
So I think there are a couple
connected.
different options to remind people.
Yeah. Well, here's the thing about getting people to sign up for recurring giving. When I grew up, when we all grew up, right, in church, they would pass the offering bucket. Our church, they had the brass.
Yeah.
The not a bucket, but the
like
plate
the velvet bottom.
with the maroon velvet bottom,
There you
right?
go.
And the communion trays matched, right? It was like the whole set. And they would pass it every week, and then you'd put your money in. And that worked for its day, but now that we have automated, subscription giving, all of our lives are dominated by subscriptions, right?
Yeah.
There's no reason why the church shouldn't lean into that, because here's the thing. If your church is not prioritizing subscription donations or automated donations, what you have to do is you have to overcome, anytime someone makes a donation decision, you have to think about what they're going through. They've got, how their day has gone, how their week has gone, where their bank account is at. Maybe they just spent a bunch. Maybe it's February and they just spent a lot on Christmas. They're not really in the mood to give because their bank account is a lot lower. You got all of these factors, right, determining whether they give or not in the moment. But if you can get them to sign up for reoccurring donations, you only have to overcome all of those objections one time. And then it's sort of set it and forget it. And I think that's the power, because when you have predictable donations, that creates, budget stability. And that stability gives you the ability to take a look at your calendar and go, hey, listen, we've got X amount coming in automatically. This can inform some of our personnel decisions, vision, capital expenditures. And so I think that's one of the things that churches really should try and prioritize and highlight as often as you can. Like, hey, and here's the thing, here's the way that you can highlight, not just highlight the automated giving aspect, but you can also kind of figure out where people are at. So at our church, we have these giving pathways. So we have the pre-giver. So they haven't given anything yet. We have a periodic giver. We have a proactive giver, which is the automated donation. We have a percentage giver. So these people aren't just giving every month, but they're giving a percentage of their income. And then we have partner givers, which is, donating land, or, there's high capacity families, financial families, so to speak. And I think it's been helpful at our church to just identify these and say, hey, listen, there's several of you that come week in, week out. You've been a part of our community. You've never given, and that's fine. But we'd like to challenge you. Here's an opportunity for you to give to this particular initiative. Or we have an Easter festival, or like kids are going to youth camp and you want to sponsor a kid to go to youth camp. That can move them from pre-giver to a periodic giver. Mm-hmm. And then if you can get them from periodic giver, then you can move them down the line. Mm-hmm. I think it's important. And so every time you get up and talk about giving at your church, you should think about one of those types of givers in mind, in addition to highlighting like, hey, set it and forget it. Automation trumps determination. So I think those are a few things that you should do. So again, to recap, we have the giving pathways. You have the pre-giver, you have the periodic giver, you have the proactive giver, which is regular giving, you have the percentage giver, and then you have the partner giver. And develop a strategy to help each one of those types of givers or non-giver.
Move down the path. Yeah.
And you could also highlight some stories too during the summer. So hopefully a church is partnering with organizations, or maybe they're doing the work themselves to kind of meet the needs in their community and the world. And so during the summer, you could probably highlight that a little bit more. Maybe post videos on social media, or send out those emails and just be like, hey, this is really important. And so it's not just about keeping the lights on, though we want to, or paying my salary, but it's also like we are meeting a need in our area, and we need people to help us to continue to do that. So I think they could highlight that. I like the different steps. We created a resource called Giving Talks, Offering Talks. We've used it at Ministry Paths for years. We're working on volume 2. Yeah. And basically one for every week. So there's like 52. And we actually use those at our church. You and I, Justin, we give offering talks periodically. And I'd love to, if our listeners don't have that, you can get that. I think we're selling it. You can Google offering talks, but I'd love to get your hands on that so that you can really think through how you communicate offering. Because a lot of times we get on stage and we just don't really have a plan. Yeah. And it becomes white noise. So I will put a link in our show notes for those things, but get you some sort of resource. There's others out there. Use something so that when you get up there, you're intentional. And what it does is it helps people to understand what giving is about and what you're doing at your church with giving.
Yeah, it's a teaching moment.
Yeah.
Not something to just fly through. It's still an act of worship. It's a moment to guide your church to, lead people.